I took this question that Simon asked me and I got on my knees. It was a beautiful, beautiful day in Siesta Key, Florida, 8 a.m. It was a blue sky. The water was flat as a pancake. And Dom, I dropped to my knees and I asked in prayer, I said, Father God, you've been talking to Simon. You've spoke to him, but you haven't said a word to me. What do you want from me? And Dom, like that, I heard 3 words that changed my life forever and started me on this path, woman of principle.
You are now listening to the podcast where authors inspire listeners to become authors, the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer, best-selling author, and book enthusiast Dom Brightman. And you're going to be listening to a different author that will inspire you to join the business of immortality, known as authorship. Now let the fun begin. Today's episode is sponsored by both books, Going North, Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself, and the follow-up bestseller, Stay the Course, The Elite Performer's 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success. Head over to Amazon.com, pick up both books. They are available in a trifecta of paperback, audio, and ebook. Cop all 3 of both and be on the lookout for another book from yours truly to help podcasters succeed. Now let's get on with today's episode. And today on the highlight reel builder for authors known as the Going North Podcast, we got another super special, awesome human for you today, courtesy of one of my favorite podcasting sites, if not websites on the freaking planet right now in 2023 and beyond. The wonderful site known as podmatch.com, the wonderful site where podcast guests get to connect with podcast hosts. And if they're cool, they're freaking in. And today's guest is cooler than 3 cucumbers. That's right, indeed, cooler than 3 cucumbers. It's like, man, like someone broke past the regular coolest meter of 2 cucumbers. She's a triangle. She's cooler than 3. And you're probably like, man, what makes her cooler than 3? Well, we both have a mutual friend. She's actually a friend of one of our past illustrious guests, one of the top 10 episodes of the show, Mr. Dr. Simon T. Bailey himself. And she's also a wonderful child of the king, as well as a wife, a mother, certified philanthropic advisor, as well as a non-profit executive, and a boatload of other things. So let's give it up for Miss MKM herself, the magnificent, kind, and magical, the one and only Mary Katherine Morales. How you doing today, Mary?
Wow, Dom, that was quite an intro. Thank you very much. I've never been introduced like that before. That was amazing. Thank you. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you, indeed. It's right, indeed.
It's good to be here. Cool as a cucumber. I love that. Nobody has ever described me that way before. And I love that we have a mutual friend in Simon, for sure.
That's right, indeed. Name of the game, Simon Says You're Freaking Awesome.
Yeah, if Simon says it, it must be true, right? That's right.
That's right. Literally. He's a doctor too, so he's got more proof.
Yeah, I love him. He's been very special in my life.
Oh, yes, indeed. But hey, it ain't just about lab coats. It's about the mighty Mary. So my goodness, as with all introductions, they're not allowed to be 865 days long. And I probably forgot, I don't know, 75 years of content. So am I filling in any cavities I may have missed about you, Mary?
Well, gosh, you're right. By day, I'm a nonprofit executive and I choose philanthropy because I really think that it adds value to the world. I love, love, love working with families to help them make investments in nonprofit organizations, education, neuroscience, mental health. It makes the world a better place. I would say something else that's really, really important to me is my faith and my family. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a fairy godmother of 3. So, I mean, I think you covered it.
Oh, fairy godmother of 3.
Yeah.
So is that your special way of saying godmother, or is there another meaning behind the title?
No, I have three beautiful goddaughters, Skylar, Madison, and Chloe. And being a fairy godmother is a lot of fun because you get all the blessings without a lot of the headache, so to speak. I get to be the one that takes them shopping and drop them back off at home. I don't have to pay their college bills, but I get to speak into their life. And we get to go on vacations and read books and have powerful stories about their dreams, their concerns, and their aspirations. So I love being a fairy godmother.
Ah, there you go. So it
Yeah,
means you got a magic wand somewhere lying
I
around.
do, I do, I do, I do.
Ah, that's right. Indeed, it's probably hidden somewhere. That's right, indeed.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
But hey, I know it's not hidden as your fabulosity. So my goodness, my goodness. So did at the age of 13, did you imagine yourself one day becoming a published author?
No, I didn't. I know that this is a podcast to help people think differently about their lives, right? And to all of your listeners, your fans, so to speak, what Dom is talking about is I am a recovered addict. And at 13 years old, I had this powerful moment with the Holy Spirit. I was sitting outside, kind of minding my own business. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, the Holy Spirit said to me, MK, you're going to write a book. And again, at 13 years old, I had no idea what that meant. But I was so shocked and so inspired by what I heard. I ran inside, I got a red spiral notebook, I came back outside, and I began to write. And it was a love story. But I got two paragraphs into this love story. And Dom, I thought to myself, what do I know about love? Right? Nothing at 13 in that way. But the seed was planted for me. And I began to write, journal. That was before computers, right? So I knew that I was called to write a book. I knew that I was called to tell stories. And that was the first time I heard the Spirit of the Lord speak to me directly. And I knew that it would be a book, but I didn't know that one day, someday, I would write a book about the journey of all of my failures. I had no idea that it would be a book about the journey through hell to home and overcoming a life addiction.
Ah, from hell to home. Oh man, my goodness indeed. So finally getting out that darn incandescent ordeal into some wonderful intentional peace. You love to see it. You love to see it. Indeed. So my goodness. So what led to the addiction? Because if I'm not mistaken, you're actually a broadcast journalist at one point too in the past life, right?
I worked in radio and television. I was actually in radio sales. So, what I would say is that my personal addiction was rooted and grounded in not thinking that I was good enough, that I was smart enough, that I was valuable enough. I was deaf as a little girl until I was 13 years old. And I remember feeling as though I was on the outside looking in. And it was a very difficult time in my life. So, from a very young age, I created a story about myself, again, that I wasn't enough. And I also created a story that I would have to be perfect in order for you and I to be friends, that I would have to be perfect in order for people to see my value. And so I lived my life on a performance based trajectory. And how that led to my addiction is that when we get our affirmation and our worth from the outside in, it's never enough, right? And so here I was, a young girl with big dreams the size of Texas, but with a broken heart. And so I, like so many people that might be listening, I got into a bad group of individuals who were making bad choices. And because I felt so badly about myself, I said yes to things that I should say no to. And long story short, until I was, gosh, it must have been, I think I was 36. My addiction got stronger and more aggressive. And there are so many things that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but my addiction not only almost took my life, but it almost took my mind. And I'm really, really grateful that I am not only 18 years sober, but I am completely free from the disease of not enough. And so I've dedicated my life, my book, the second chance that God has given me, Dom, to help other women rise, to lead from the breakfast table to the boardroom, and to help them to discover that God has a call upon their life as well.
That's what I'm talking about indeed. That's what I'm talking about indeed. That's right. God might be in your cell phone, y'all. Might be calling you. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Especially if your name's Tyrone too. That's right. And this time he will answer. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. And it's kind of interesting too with the how the old addiction started because it reminded me of a kind of one of our past, I guess I believe, Brienne Davis, where it was a little bit similar. It's like I'm sure there was some alcohol involved, but her addiction was sex addiction,
Mhm.
and she mentioned how she loved attention. With her being an actress, it
Mhm.
kind of fit. It's like, oh yeah, I just love people. It's like, hey, like tricking in the attention for people, like yay, and then it's just can lead to a dark road if you're not careful. So being able to navigate
That's right.
through all of that and come out the other side, and congratulations on 18 plus years. Because the good news is it's not even over yet. You're still just getting started.
That's right. And just like your other guests, I mean, addiction is not just drugs or alcohol or sex. It could be a negative mindset. It could be gossiping. There are so many. It could be social media, right? It could be working too much. It could be not telling the truth is an addiction, right? Not speaking our mind, can become an addiction. Shopping too much, swearing too much. And we do all of those things because we don't really see the value of who we are. And not only in the eyes of God, but in the eyes of our fellow human beings.
So I'm talking about indeed. So my goodness, I imagine faith is a big part of your 18 plus years of champ status. Does anything else contribute to your wonderful sobriety journey now?
Yes, so many things. Thank you for asking. In my book, I talk about three things, Dom. I talk about the power of transforming your mind and the way that you think. And it talks about that in Romans 12 too, right? It says, do not conform to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind. So I spend a lot of time talking about how to do that. I talk about living a courageous life as a woman or a person of faith. And then I talk a lot about how you rise to the call that is upon your life right now. And so my book is really divided into 5 practices and 5 principles because I really believe that what we practice, we become. And in the world, we there are so many books that are written on values and habits, right? But in my prayer and meditation time, the Spirit of God started talking to me about practices and principles and how they actually help to determine the course of our life. And so I'm happy to talk about some of those if you think it would be a value add. But living my life through a set of principles and practices has helped me not only get sober, because that's just part of the story. It helped me to write 2 books, start a women's movement called Women of Principle, and it helped to prepare me to be a vice president in philanthropy and lead a team and help a community rise, not just survive, but really thrive. And so all of those things have added to my ability to do that and to be a great mom and a wife and a friend.
There you go. That's right, indeed. Sounds like a lot of schooling right there with all those principles. That's right, indeed. Even though it's only five of
And they're so simple, right? Can I share one of them with you and your listeners?
them. Of course you can.
All right. First, I think it's important to know what is a principle, right? And so I'd like to share a story about how I came up with this because, Dom, I'm actually not smart enough to come up with this, so to speak. It was actually Simon T. Bailey, our friend and my mentor of 17 years. We were on the phone one day and Simon said, "Hey, MK, are you going to write this book? Are you going to be obedient to one of the calls upon your life? Because if you're not, let's not talk about it anymore." And I don't know if you have ever been called to the mat by a mentor or a friend, but essentially, when Simon asked me that question, my heart sank into my stomach because I knew that I was playing it safe. I knew that this was something bold that the Spirit of God had asked me to do. So, long story short, I went over to the west coast of Florida. I took this question that Simon asked me and I got on my knees. It was a beautiful, beautiful day in Siesta Key, Florida, 8 a.m. It was a blue sky. The water was flat as a pancake. And Dom, I dropped to my knees and I asked in prayer, I said, "Father God, you've been talking to Simon. You spoke to him, but you haven't said a word to me. What do you want from me?" And Dom, like that, I heard three words that changed my life forever and started me on this path: woman of principle. And I had never heard those words before. So I actually had to look it up. I didn't know what it meant. So the word principle means that we live our life by a code of ethics, and principles serve as a North Star goal. We may never get it right, we may never get it perfect, but when our thoughts fail us, when those stories and beliefs get in our way, principles serve as a bright, beautiful light that helps to guide our journey along the way. And so, one of my favorite principles in the book is becoming beautifully transparent through the practice of honesty. And so, transparency is a principle that is really important today because it's a principle that's based on trust. It's a principle that is based on being your authentic self, right? And the practice that is aligned with that principle is telling the truth and being honest. And it was the hardest principle and practice to write because it assumes that someone's not being honest. And that's a hard conversation to have, right? But the power of honesty in today's world, when I was researching for my book, the research I did said that 70% of Americans say that they don't trust other people and they don't think that other people are honest. And so to live as a woman of principle or a person of principle means that we embrace the practice of being honest. And that leads to powerful, powerful connections between two people and helps us to overcome some of the challenges that we face today in religion, in politics, in corporate culture. So that's one of the practices and the principles that I believe lead to living in more freedom. And I'd love to hear from you on that.
Yeah, it's right indeed. It's right indeed. Because, hey, definitely true. I mean, title of the book, Woman of Principle. It's like, hey, if you got to be a woman of principle, a man of principle, you got to be honest. You really have to be because it's like if you're not, then really everything else really falls by the wayside because that's kind of really the foundation. Because, funny enough, I was looking at the list and I'm like, oh, yeah, this makes sense to being the foundation, of course. God first being the last one, which was kind of a funny clay question I was probably going to throw at you. Be like, oh, so it says God first, but it's the bottom of the list. It's like, oh, wait, but then you got to be honest with yourself because if you're not honest with God, then hey, God can't be first if you're not honest. And heck, even reminds me of one of your past stories I heard in the past podcast about how you're able to sneak a wedding ring on your finger from a guy because you didn't tell him about your addiction to the past. They had to be one of those loving, caring folks to help snap you out of it.
100%. I mean, thank God everyone thinks my husband is the true hero in the story, and he absolutely is. And, people are dishonest, Dom, for so many reasons, and addicts are notoriously dishonest. But one of the ways I like to give people the visual, right? So we live in a world that says it is okay to tell small white lies, right? I don't know if you've ever heard this or your listeners have ever heard somebody say, oh, no, you don't want to say that. You don't want to say that. You could lose your job. It'll ruin your relationship. They'll be upset with you. But what happens, and this is in my book, and it's based on neuroscience, the research shows that when we tell small white lies, imagine a beautiful pitcher of water. It's crystal clear. And you're 10 years old, you're 12 years old, and you start telling small white lies about yourself, about your family, about what you believe. Now imagine dropping red food coloring into that beautiful pitcher of transparent water. 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops. And as you shake it a little bit, all of a sudden, that beautiful transparent pitcher of water is now pink, right? Or dark red. And that is, as we tell lies about ourselves 10 years, 20 years, 30 years old, 40 years old, and all of a sudden we wake up and we realize we're miserable, we're unhappy, we have anxiety, we have fear, we feel inauthentic about ourselves, our relationships aren't a place of connection, and we wonder where it all came from. And so through those small white lies, it creates brain damage, it creates relationship damage. But the research also shows that every time we're courageous enough to say, hey, Dom, you just asked me a really important question. Do I have permission just to be honest with you and tell you really what I think and feel about that? You build transparency and connection, and you can do it that quickly. So it's one way for people to think about what do they really want for their lives. And if they want love and connection, they've got to practice being honest with themselves and with others.
That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. It's like the classic, do I look fat in this dress? It's like, dang gummit. Why you put this trap in front of me? It's like,
Did you ever see that Snickers commercial where that girl goes, does my butt look big in these jeans? And the guy goes, wait a minute. It's like, how do you answer that question? Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh.
Yeah. But think about it, at the heart, and Dr. Brene Brown talks a lot about this, right, in her research. What people want more than anything else is love and connection. And that's what the principle of transparency is all about, is that if you and I started having a discussion about something that is probably controversial, right? One of us would probably have a tendency to pull back and start telling small white lies because we don't want to create friction. And when we can learn leadership tools on how to ask questions, how to ask for permission, to really talk about complex topics, at the end of the day, it builds love and connection. And the spirit of fear wants to separate us, right? The enemy is here to kill, steal, and destroy relationships. But honesty and transparency creates love and connection. And that's why I put it first in my book.
That's what I'm talking about in teas. I'm talking about Indeed. So my goodness. So now that you're on the wonderful other side, any plans for future books now that you got two under your belt?
That is a great question. I've been thinking about that. I have some ideas, but I have not started writing my third book. So stay tuned on that.
Ah, okay. All right. I get you. I get you indeed. That's right, indeed. So my goodness, since you've been on so many interviews promoting the wonderful work that you're doing on the good old blue planet Earth, is there a question that you wish folks would ask you more often?
Oh, that's a great question. I think one of the questions I get asked a lot is how do you transition, right? Like if you find yourself in a really hard place, how do you begin to rebuild your mindset and your life to live more courageously? So I'm happy to talk about that.
Oh, go on ahead. Don't be shy.
So I love simplicity, Dom. And when we are thinking about building a life we really, really love, we often set really big goals for ourselves. But setting that really big goal is important, right? We want to think big and dream big. But the power of transforming my life and becoming who I really truly believe is who God is calling me to be. And it's what I tell all of the ladies in the Women of Principle community. It's about the 1% principle. It isn't about running a marathon every day. It's about implementing very small, very simple practices because what we practice, we become. It's about getting 1% stronger every day. It's about doing that one thing every day. And the research shows that when we implement the 1% principle, we set that big goal and we do one small thing every day, that at the end of 1 year, if you do 1% better every day, if you get 1% stronger, you become 34% better at that one thing in a year. Think about that for a second, right? That by keeping it really simple and implementing that 1% principle, you can become more courageous. You can live differently. You can think differently. It's almost like running a marathon. Like when I was practicing, I used to be a long distance cyclist and we would ride hundreds of miles in a weekend or 100 miles a day. I started, Dom, by doing my very first ride, I did 11 miles. And that was a lot. And I asked my coach, his name's Kevin. He was a very tall, looming 6'4" guy. I said, Kevin, how do I become a better rider? And he said, MK, go ride your bike. And that's what I did, Dom, for thousands of hours, thousands of miles for 7 years. I would ride in the rain, the heat, and I rode with better riders. And I faced my limiting beliefs, I faced my concerns, but I wanted to be a better rider. And so I just got 1% better every time I got on my bike. And I went from 11 miles to 20 miles to 30 miles to 50 miles. And eventually I could ride with the team for up to 100 miles a day. But I didn't start there. It started with 11 miles and 1% at a time. So that's how I believe that we can become more who we've always wanted to be, is just small practices a little bit at a time.
So you heard that right, folks. That's right indeed. The big bad wolf is coming. Put up your one brick at a time of house right up now, y'all. That's right indeed. That's right.
One brick at a time, friends. One brick at a time. That's right. Yeah. That's
right
hilarious.
indeed.
That's right.
The song "She's a Brick House" has a new meaning now. That's right indeed. You don't
Oh,
want
that's
to.
right. That brings something. Yeah, I hear that in my.
That's right indeed. She's mighty, mighty. That's right indeed. Let all the principal hang out in this case. That's right indeed.
That's right. That's right.
AKA
That's right.
honesty.
That's right.
That's right indeed.
You put a whole new spin on it. That's right.
Yes, ma'am, indeed. We believe in spending here, just not too much, because then you'll get dizzy, and then you might wake up as the yin yang symbol. Don't want to spend too
Oof,
much.
cross, cross. So let me ask you, how do you encourage other people to be a better version of themselves? How do you inspire people to go farther and faster?
Oh, humor is definitely one of them. Because when you get folks to think, they'll be like, "Oh, I never thought of it that way." Because it's like, "Oh, it's a good point." It's like the casual post hump day, just a small joke of like, "Wait, post hump day? I thought hump day was yesterday." It's like, "Yes, it was. This is post hump day, Thursday, for those who missed the camel and enjoy want to get to the weekend." It's like, hey, and then you throw a little inspiration their way, depending on the situation, the power of questions. That's right, indeed. Because hey, I guess we're both in that line of work of asking folks great questions to get folks to think and then get them into a corner where their excuses are gone. They have no more
That's right.
walls. That's right, indeed. The walls are made out of marshmallow now.
That's right. Squishy. That's right. That's squishy. Yeah. That's so good. And Dom, I think you're right. In the world today as leaders, I think we have a really great opportunity to speak life and abundance and hope into those that we serve on a daily basis, and to help people remember that every day that we're alive and that we have breath in our lungs, there's hope for us. And even now, I would consider myself as an imperfectly perfect, successful wife, mom, author, leader, but I still have more to grow. And so that's really the opportunity in front of us, is that if you're listening today and you have big dreams, like Dom said, we have the opportunity to overcome those limiting beliefs one thought at a time. And just because we think something doesn't make it true, and we can challenge those limiting beliefs. We can turn off the crappy radio or TV if it's causing us friction. There's more for us, one day at a time.
Heck yeah, that's right, indeed. One day at a time, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So speaking of one day at a time, what are you excited about for the future for the next 3 to 6 months?
It's another really good question. I would say that in my career as a vice president, we are bringing together donors, philanthropists, leaders to help us build a stronger community, education, housing, food security, mental health. As the founder of the Women Are Principal community, what I'm really, really excited about is we just celebrated our 3-year anniversary. We have several thousand women that are part of our community, and Dom, they are getting stronger every day because they are implementing the God first practice. They are becoming wiser, stronger, and that is what gets me up. I love, love, love to see women become a better version of themselves. I love to see them do courageous things. And so that's what we're up to in the Women Are Principal community. We're talking about deservability, right? Like, as human beings, as women of God, as women of faith, how do we break through not believing that there's more for us? And then we have someone coming in to talk about the importance of setting a vision for your life. But we're going to do it all through the love of God and faith, and embrace it's okay to be imperfect. Everybody's imperfect. And if we would all just get honest about that, we don't have to be perfect to live a great life. So that's what's happening over the next 3 to 6 months in my world.
Well, fun question for you. So, if your fabulous book, Becoming a Woman of Principle, Transforming Your Mind, Living Courageously, and Rising to Your Call, if that book were a food, what would it be and why?
Oh, it would be a pizza, because it is my favorite food, and there are lots of yummy toppings, right? There's something for everyone. And It tastes good. It's good for you. And so it'd be a pizza.
There you go. That's right. I knew you were my kind of people.
As a matter of fact, I'm having pizza tonight for dinner. So there you go.
There you go. That's right indeed. The pie with all the cheese and the smiles. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. It's like a circleception. It's a giant
Ooh.
circle with all the circles on it with pepperoni. If you're a
Mm,
pepperoni person, that's right indeed. She has pep in her step, y'all, for a reason.
that's
That's right.
right.
That's right. That's right indeed. Well, since you're a woman of faith, always invite fellow Christians to share their salvation testimony on the podcast. So, how'd you come to know Christ, Mary?
Mm. Well, I will tell you, I've loved Jesus since I was a little girl. It sounds kind of sappy, but because I was deaf as a little girl, I used to have this picture of Jesus that I would carry with me. So I've known him for a long time, but I will tell you, I came to know the love of Jesus when I was smack dab in the middle of my addiction. Was losing everything, and I mean everything, my career, my friendships, my relationships. I was living with a friend and a woman named Liz. I have not seen her in at least 25 years, but a woman named Liz picked me up, took me to a church in Orlando. It was a Saturday night, and I sat in the back, and it's Northland Church. Pastor Joel, I used to say he was the greatest man I never met. And I would sit in the back, Dom, and I would listen to stories of hope, that Jesus loved me, that God had more for me. And I don't tell this story much, but it's one of my favorite stories because I would go to his church on Saturday nights. I would find the courage to go and listen to the message. I would sit in back because I was filled with so much guilt and shame and addiction. But his stories were so inspirational that they kept me coming back. And I really believe that those stories of hope kept me alive in my darkest days. So that's my story, my salvation story, is I knew in my darkest days as an addict, an alcoholic, and woman consumed with fear that God was with me. I wasn't alone. And I'm forever grateful for that.
There we go. She was consumed by fear, but I bet she's consumed by courage now. That's right indeed. That's
Yes,
right
I
indeed.
am. Yes, I
That's
am.
right. Yes, indeed. That's right indeed. So if you see a lady with a propeller hat in your church, it's Mary Catherine, y'all. That's right indeed. She's got that courage.
Like that, yeah, I'll be the angel kind of spinning over your head, giving you messages of hope. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. Buy one with a principal. Buy 500 copies.
Buy
Just buy it.
500 copies.
That's right. For no reason. It's like, dude, I'm a man. Buy it for your wife and your sister. Fun.
Like my husband and Simon always say, men can be principled too. So I've had a lot of guys read my book actually and comment on it. It's pretty cool. I'm very grateful.
There we go. Hashtag grateful indeed. That's right indeed. Because hey, you can learn from anything. And besides, besides, we will probably read books geared towards men anyway. And be like, man, what the heck they talking about over there? What they thinking about? Let me see what they doing. Let me see. We get inside their brains, seeing what they saying.
Yeah, that's right. Or guys, you could buy a copy for your wife, your girlfriend, your daughter. Yeah, friend.
Heck yeah, indeed. That's right indeed.
Yep.
Especially when there's a penguin involved, y'all. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. For no freaking reason at all. So my goodness, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive. And that is, if you know, wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again, but you're still in the current year, what advice would you give to yourself?
Believe in yourself and don't give up. But I would tell my younger self that there really is a divine purpose for your life and be brave enough to go after it.
Yeah, that's right. The MK Ultra's coming to you, y'all. That's right indeed. She's got a cape. That's right indeed. She's got a cape and some specs, y'all. That's right indeed. And she's got a cross too. That's right indeed. She might come across you. You never know.
This is great.
That's right indeed. One day you might wake up with the book next to you saying, Becoming a Woman of Principle. It's like, hey, this is a pretty sweet cover. And out of nowhere, you have a blazer on your shoulders. Like, hey, where does blazer come from? Still in my bed. And then you see a nameplate with your name and then principal under it. And it's like, oh, well, I guess I'm a principal now.
That's right. You are a person of principle for sure. That's right.
And then if a random little child walks up in front of you and asks you about skunks and eclairs, then you might have to go back to sleep.
You know you're dreaming.
But if you go to sleep and then you wake up and the book is still next to you, that means you made a good investment. That's right,
Amen.
indeed.
Thank you, Dom. Thank you.
So for those who not only need to invest more time into themselves by following you and keeping up with you, doing copies of their, or just say your books, what's the best way for folks to do so?
3 ways. You can find me on LinkedIn on Mary Katherine MK Morales. You can go to womanofprinciple.com. And if you're on Facebook, we have a private group called Women of Principle Community. And we would love to meet you. We would love to have you as part of our community and our movement to help women rise and become who God is calling you to be. And that's
Woohoo!
it. Yeah.
We heard that right, folks. Join the movement. That's right, indeed. They got the Chick-fil-A cow in there too for a reason. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. They have a mask. Let me stop there. You got Who
No
knows? Maybe they
cow,
got.
no cow, no cow, no cow.
Is there a soul cow in there?
No.
That's right, indeed, folks. That's right, indeed. For the folks who aren't vegan, as they say, eat more chicken. That's right, indeed. In this case, read more books. That's
That's
right,
right.
indeed. And make sure Mary Catherine Morales' book is in the pile. That's right, indeed. Make sure it's an avalanche of them. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Especially if she decides to write more, some copies, and keep up with her journey because she's doing some good stuff and she's only getting started, y'all. She's only getting started because she's only going to get better from here, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. You think this is the cream of the crop on the top for you, but it ain't. That's right, indeed. We're still in the middle of the cupcake with Mary Catherine because you never know. 3 years from now, she'll probably be even bigger and badder than ever. So, any parting words before I close up shop?
I would invite people to think about what are the principles that they live by, right? Because principles really do help move us in the direction of our dreams. So if you never thought about it before, if someone were to say to you, hey, Dom, hey, listener, what are the principles that you live by? Would you have an answer? Would you know who you are and what are the principles that help you to be the best mom, the best wife, and to live a life you absolutely love? If not, I'd be happy to help you think through it. But that's what I would say is take time to define who you want to be and then go out and live the life you love.
If you're hearing this part of the episode, that means you're one cool individual. Thanks a bunch for tuning in, and if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to share it with at least one other person in your network. Bonus points for 3. And be sure to check out the backlog too while you're at it because there are hundreds of wonderful episodes to choose from as well.